Hello, welcome to Voices in the Wilderness. My name is Pastor Lorraine Bouffard. I am the Bishop of the Diocese of Connecticut for the American Ecumenical Catholic Church. I have with me today my buddy, Father Mickey Danyluk.
Associate.
And today we're going to do something quite different. We're going to talk about the roots and the development of the Catholic liturgy. But before we, a lot of people don't know, well, what are you talking about liturgy? Well, we're talking about worship, okay? The worship of the church. And you heard me say the word Catholic, and that probably is a confusion since you see me here sitting as a woman, priest. Mickey, would you tell the audience how inclusive that word Catholic is?
Okay. Catholic, using a small c, Lorraine, would address a number of different church traditions, such as the Episcopal Church, the Lutheran Church, the Eastern Rite churches, best known the Polish National Church, and many other churches that adhere to the Nicene Creed, celebrate a number of different sacraments, and have a liturgical format, recognizing Jesus' body and blood being offered in a sacrificial way.
That's right. So there are many, many Catholic churches. So what we're going to talk about here today is we're not going to do a consecration of the elements, but we're going to do some of the different parts of the liturgy and explain to you why they're there and how they came about. Mickey, I'm sure growing up you heard the same kind of criticisms that I did. Look at those Catholics. All the rich stuff that they have in there, and why don't they give that money to the poor instead of buying all this elaborate stuff? What is your reaction to that?
Well, I think, Lorraine, that there are two aspects, two outlooks, two ways to look at that. First is we worship a God who is transcendent, a God who, if you will, comes from above to meet us in our humanity. And then we have the other aspect of Christ growing into the knowledge and his divinity, his recognition. And so we have a number of different symbols, clay, earthen vessels that are here on our altar table, as well as a gold monstrance. So we have a balance between gold, rich, expensive vessels, and earthen vessels. And the earthen vessels represent us. We are of the earth.
Mm-hmm. It's always been my the thinking, since I've been ordained, that the worship that we do is similar to theater. Mm-hmm. And this, I believe that we need to demonstrate to God in our worship and our adoration the best that we have, the best gestures, the best of cloths, the best of everything. If someone important were coming into my home, I certainly wouldn't be using the everyday dishes.
Or the ones that are chipped or worn or,
right.
All right, or dirty.
So I think it's important for us to know that. That is one of the reasons. We don't want to do it to such excess that it is a distraction or a scandal. One of the things that we have to remember when we are doing the liturgy and we are talking about liturgy is to remind people that Jesus was a Jew and he remained a Jew. And in Judaism, there are many things that the Christian liturgy has taken. And our faith has many roots in Jewish liturgy. If we want to have a better understanding of our faith, it would behoove us to try and read about, and we're going to talk about some of these things, the similarities between ecclesia, church, and temple. The similarity between homilies, midrashim, which is the same. The different feasts, Lent and Yom Kippur, Passover and Easter. Mickey, after the death of Jesus, what happened for worship? Because up to that time they were worshiping in the temple and the synagogues. What happened with the disciples?
Well, they continued to worship in the synagogue, in probably a corner or in the back pew. And when the synagogue or the temple fell, they were exiled and they dispersed. And we also know that after they would worship in the temple, they would go to someone's house, and they would continue with a meal. And they did remember that Jesus asked them to do something in memory of him. And they did do that. And that would be very early on. This is what they did. They talked about Jesus. It was a very, very much an oral tradition of talking about what Jesus did. You remember that time that he was up on the mountain, and they would tell stories. Then, as the centuries went on, things began to change. We know that a lot of the women started house churches. And that's when, like you said, they were, told to leave the temple. And by the 2nd century, there was developed a written text called the Didache, which is called the Acts. They were the Acts of the Apostles, and it was very, very basic form for worship, but mostly had things about Jesus in it. It wasn't until the 4th century that Constantine changed the whole format or was responsible for that. And so the people moved out of the house churches into the basilicas. And there was a little bit more added to the ritual of worship, but it was very helter-skelter. You wouldn't know when they wanted the bread and the wine, and where were they going to do the readings from was probably wherever the light was best. So it wasn't until the 7th century that there finally was developed a thing called a sacramentary, and that was an order of worship. Now, I wrote up here what is basically what we in our worship service follow today in a Catholic tradition. We have the opening rite, the confession, the Kyrie eleison, which is Greek for Lord have mercy. At times we do the Gloria, but not always. This liturgy of the word basically is the readings from the Hebrew Testament and the Christian Testament. And then we profess our faith, we have prayers from the people, and then we offer the kiss of peace. At this point in time, what we'd like to do is we'd like to go more into the liturgy of the Eucharist, but when Father Mickey wants to talk about the different things that you see up here and what they're all about. What I tell my people is when I celebrate liturgy is now we move to the upper room where Jesus is present with us as he was with his disciples in the breaking of the bread. Good etiquette calls for the Mass to be offered on an altar stone. Certainly not always done, but in the Catholic churches, the Lutheran, Episcopal, and other churches, they have a consecrated stone with a cross and 5